Are you overwhelmed by motherhood and barely keeping your head above water? Are you confused and frustrated by how all the other moms make it look so easy? You can't figure out how to manage the chaos in your mind, your home, or your family. I get you, mama. Parenting with ADHD is hard. Here is your permission slip to let go of the Pinterest-worthy visions of organization and structure fit for everyone else. Let's do life like our brains do life. Creatively, lovingly, and with all our might. When we embrace who we are and how our brains work, we can figure out how to live our lives successfully and, in turn, lead our families well. At the end of the day, we just want to be good moms. But, spoiler alert, you are already a great mom. ADHD does not mean you're doomed to be a hot mess, mama. You can rewrite your story from shame spiral to success story. And I'll be right here beside you to cheer you on. Welcome to Motherhood and ADHD. Hello, my dears. I am so excited that you are here. I'm going to apologize now. I am on the tail end of a sinus infection, and I'm going to hope that my voice holds out for this hour. I'll go as long as I can. But mostly, I wanted to start by saying thank you. I'm so glad that you all are here, and just to be here and be like, there was 1 million downloads of this podcast is just bonkers to me. And I just so appreciate y'all. Never would happen without you, because I certainly didn't click download 1 million times myself. So thank you so much for being here, and not just like here today, but here as a whole. Yeah, before I start to get teary, because then I'm going to really lose my voice, I'm going to jump in. So just a couple of housekeeping things before we begin. This is a recorded live podcast. So if you are talking, you will be recorded and you will probably end up on the podcast. So if you're like, I don't want to be on the podcast, then you can type your question in the chat and I will read out loud. I will only use first names. So no identifying information will be out there. But you will be recorded if you decide to contribute and be part of this. And then I will not really be monitoring the chat that closely because it's very distracting to me. So if you have a question, if you would please write the word question super big at the front, like in all caps. And then that way, as I scroll through, I can find them pretty quick. And yeah, basically like this hour is yours. Whatever you want to ask is here for you. So let me see, make sure I didn't skip anything. All right. So y'all, what can I help you with? What do you want to ask me? What's going on today? How's life? I got my tea here, so take a sip and let me know how you're doing. And what would you like to ask? And if you are ready, like you can just unmute and say hi. And if you are like, I want to put my note in the chat and call on me, I can do that too.
I'll kick us off. Hello.
Hi, my friend.
So being that you're at 1 million downloads, what would you say is your journey on getting to that point, like with your podcast?
On any particular like part of the journey?
Let's go with like maybe your 3 pivotal moments between the idea of starting a podcast and hitting 1 million downloads. And I'll add in as a mom with ADHD.
So I think the first one was just like when I had the idea, like when God asked me, said, hey, can you please do this? And I was like, no, thank you. I am not interested. That moment of thinking like, you know what, like I could just try. And if it's a total failure, it's okay. Like I didn't even tell other people in my life that I was doing it because I was too afraid to say, like I'm taking on, like it felt like a really big thing to do. And it felt like at the time, I think I was really afraid of failing and afraid of looking like I didn't know what I was doing. And honestly, I didn't know what I was doing. So I don't know why I was afraid of looking like I didn't know what I was doing because I had no idea what I was doing. But I think at that point in my life, like I look back, it was 5 years ago, I was just really afraid of a lot of things, the way people thought of me, the way people might talk about me, things they might say about me. And that's what took me so long to get to the point where I was willing to start the podcast. And so I think that first pivotal moment was just being like, I'm willing to try this and fail. And then if I have to like not do it anymore, then I just won't do it anymore. Like I didn't know how to podcast. I didn't know anything about anything, to be honest. I literally was like on YouTube watching videos to try to figure it out. But yeah, I think that was the first one of just being okay with trying and knowing that it probably honestly wasn't going to go well, but it's okay. I think the second one would be when I met with somebody I respect a lot. She has a podcast that has millions of downloads and she's a coach. And when I did this thing in her community where I like won a one-on-one with her. And so I had like 20 minutes to meet with her. And she told me that my niche was too small and that there weren't enough moms with ADHD and that I should widen my niche, that I should talk to more people. Like I should make it just women with ADHD or just moms. Like it was never going to be a big thing. Like there wasn't enough people and it wasn't going to gain enough momentum at any point where it would actually make a difference. Like I had to think about it a lot of like, am I doing the wrong thing? Like, is this never going to go anywhere? And I made the decision after a lot of like hemming and hawing. Because again, like I respect this lady a lot. And she was far, 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 far beyond me in the journey, thinking like, well, she surely knows what she's talking about. Making that decision to say, you know what, I am going to trust that this is the mission I was given and I'm going to try and I'm going to go for it. And it's okay if it never gets to be a thing. Like if I never win anything, any awards, I never have like fancy numbers, if I never get anything cool that says you did a good job, like as an outer recognition of what I had accomplished, then it was okay because I was doing what God asked of me. And that's enough. And if I only ever talked to 200 people the whole time that the podcast ran, like that was okay because my mission wasn't to have 1 million downloads. My mission wasn't how do you be the top whatever of the whatevers. That wasn't the goal. The goal was to try to help as many moms as possible with ADHD. And if there were only 10 of them out there and that's all I got to help, then I did what I was supposed to do. So I think that would be the second pivotal moment is recognizing like, I'm okay if this never goes anywhere. I'm okay if I never do anything cool. The mission is how do I help as many moms who are in my spot as possible. And then I think the third pivotal moment was when the podcast actually hit the top 5 of parenting podcasts. I think I'm not 100% sure, but I think because like when it hit that, I was just like, I was in shock. I was crying. I was like, this is amazing. And I was like, I don't know how this happened because I'm like, I didn't do anything to make this happen. Like, why did all of a sudden jump that day? And I think it was because someone shared me on TikTok, which I'm not even on, by the way. Like, if someone told me a couple days later, I don't know if it's true or not, because again, I'm not on TikTok. Well, I take that back. I tried TikTok for like 5 minutes. So if you go in there, you can watch a bunch of ridiculous videos of me that did not pan out, and they're all like 2 years old. But it's Nikki Marr of, oh, what is it? Nikki Unplugged. Someone told me that she shared the podcast on something. And so it jumped that day to the 5th spot on parenting podcasts. And I was just like, what? Like, that was the moment where it was like, wait a second, this really can be something. Like, all this, it's not going to be enough. There's not enough people, all this messaging that I had received along the way that it was never going to be somewhere big. At that moment where it was like, if one person told her people like, hey, this is important, there was enough people there that it made a difference. And so finally, like, I was like, I got that validation like 3 years in of being like, there are enough people out here that need help. Once I got that like outside validation, it was like, oh, there are a lot of people here. Like, it's like I already knew that, but like to see it on a number just makes it feel more tangible. So I think that would have been like the third one where I realized like, no, this really is like there are communities of moms out here that need this, and that it's not just what I imagined to be out there. Like I physically saw the difference in a number where I knew people needed this and moms needed this community and this hope. So yeah, I think that would be the 3 of being willing to fail, being okay if it never showed up into anything at all. And then the third one of seeing like, no, this really matters. And there are people who need this. I think those would be the 3 that kind of pushed me along the way. Cause I think when it hit top 5, like I was still pretty early along. I'm like, I probably shouldn't pick a number because I really don't know. But there was definitely like over 100,000 downloads at that point. So it was like enough, but it was like it had taken so long to get there. It felt like, well, I don't know, maybe it's just the same person downloading all the episodes. Who knows? But yeah, I think that's the other hard part about having a podcast is that you don't see anybody. You don't like, that's why I wanted to do this today is like, I actually get to see your faces and be like, hello, you're here. I'm so excited to see you. Because normally when I talk on the podcast, like I'm sitting in my closet, surrounded by my clothes and my shoes on the floor with the bath mat from the bathtub. Like I see you sit on that as my cushion and I'm just talking to myself. So, you know, I keep putting it out there into the universe and like hoping it goes somewhere. But like, I think that's the hardest part about doing podcasting is that you don't have that interaction and you don't ever get a significant amount of feedback to be like, there is somebody here. Like I see the number, but I'm like, what if they didn't listen? What if they just downloaded it? And then they started listening for 5 seconds and then their kids interrupted them and then everyone actually listened to anything. Like I worry about these kinds of things, which I do my best to stop worrying about them. But like, there's no interaction on the podcast side. So that's why like I love having my community each month is like, okay, real people. I am helping real people, not just a person somewhere, hopefully they downloaded it in their Spotify, like a real human. Yeah, that would be my top three. For those of you who just popped in, sorry. I'm getting over a sinus infection, so I lost my voice yesterday. I could not talk at all yesterday. So very excited it's back. Because also parenting with no voice is some hard work. Uh, especially when you have a 6-year-old who is the question asker of all question askers.
Hi.
Hi.
I'm hi. I just finished a work appointment. So like, yes, you see the seatbelt, but no, I'm not driving, so don't fear. First off, I just like finding your podcast has been just immensely helpful. I'm like, oh yeah, this podcast I listen to, like my friend Patricia, she told me this, putting the like putting the alerts on my bank account had that was it just something I'm like I didn't know that they did that, but they do it. So I don't know, I guess, and my Vivance has kicked in. I have no excuse for stumbling over words, but my question is, I'm a single, like, sole caregiver to a 3-year-old and a business owner, and I'm also helping take care of my sick mother as well. And I just get so overstimulated and feel like I'm kind of like drowning a lot of the time, and feel like I should be able to do more than I can. And there are other people in my family who don't have ADHD who are still validly struggling with our life circumstances at the moment, but like they can do things sequentially more easily. And even my sister, who has ADHD but does not have a child, who's also constantly pulling for attention, like she seems to be able to do it better. Like even when I'm trying to like get in this routine, like, okay, we go in the house, we wash hands, we take off shoes, you do this, I'm making dinner, like it's like check, check, check. So I don't have to like put any executive function into it. It's still like just stuff keeps happening because he's a human. He's not a robot.
Life keeps lifing. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I don't know how to like function within that and keep my brain. I don't know. Like how do I function in the chaos? Do you have any tips for that?
Yeah. I mean, the first thing I want to recognize is like, that's a lot of stuff. Like, that's a lot of responsibility. That's a lot of weight. Like, just doing regular life and being a single parent is a lot. Just doing regular life and caring for an ailing parent is a lot. Like, just doing regular life and trying to keep up with a 3-year-old is a lot. So, like, if you take any one of those things, doing regular life with any one of them is a lot. So, like, first recognizing like how much you're doing, it's like, yeah, of course you feel like you're drowning because people keep dumping buckets on your head. Like,
and
it's
then
not
jumping on me on the bucket and hitting it.
It's like, it's a lot. And you're just trying to keep your head above water and someone else just keeps dumping more stuff on. It's like, well, obviously, when we take a step back and go like, oh, wow, look at all the things I'm holding. And when we can give ourselves that like moment of grace to just know like, this is hard. This is a lot of stuff. Just from the get-go is step one. Like, it's not that you should be doing more things. You're already doing all the things.
I feel like I'm doing them all badly. Like I'm not doing any of them like well enough. I don't know. Like it's that perfectionism stuff that you talk about a lot.
So what is the definition of like doing them well? Like, let's pick one of them. Like, what's one of the things that you're like, I'm not doing that well?
Being able to it's impossible. Like,
just pick one. Like, I know your brain's like, let me think of 17 million right now. What's one?
Yeah, it's like being able to calmly, and this, I'm pretty sure this isn't a word, but nurturingly meet my son's needs, all of my son's needs.
So what's the definition of success and doing that well to be able to meet all of his needs?
I mean, I think that's what that would be how I define it, I guess. Just
Okay. So if you're trying to meet all of his needs, how much time and resource and like manpower and all the things do you need to be able to meet your kids' every need?
like 100%.
Right. And so that's one of your responsibilities. So if you want 100% of you to go to one responsibility,
That doesn't leave a lot for the rest.
exactly.
Um,
So when we think about like doing things quote unquote well, the difference of like, are we expecting ourselves to give 100% of ourselves to this thing that is only one of the 47 hats you're going to wear today? You probably don't have 100% to give to one thing. So then we look at, okay, that's not realistic. So what's the actual goal of what you want? Like when you think about like nurturing your son, what's the actual goal that we want to meet?
I want him to feel loved and supported and not like I'm neglecting him for taking care of my mom or for like having to do documentation and session planning at home for work. Like,
so when you say your goal is for him to feel loved and supported, what are the ways that you currently show that you love and support him?
read to him, ask him questions about his day, tell him he's a great kid. I try really hard to help him learn emotional regulation and coping skills, things like that.
Okay, so you
I'm
have
trying to
shown,
prepare him for whatever eventually happens with my mom.
yeah.
So
you're showing him how he's loved and supported by spending time with him, reading with him, asking him questions, helping him learn emotional regulation, telling him he's a good kid. And are all those things fulfilling that goal of him feeling loved and supported?
I hope.
I mean, it's hard to judge a 3-year-old, but when you're sitting there reading a book with him and you look at him, do you think he feels loved and supported?
I do.
And when you tell, like, picture his face for a moment, like when you tell him he's a good kid and you see how his face changes, does he feel loved and supported?
I think so. He's 3, so
He's 3, so like, yeah,
I think so.
but like planting
so.
all these little seeds of like the little things you're doing. A lot of times as mom, we feel like we need more quantity and that we're not giving our kids enough quantity of things, but it's not all about the quantity. It's not that you're giving him 100% of your resources. It's that when you're present with him, he's getting that quality time. And yeah, like Ashley said, it's like the fact that you even think about these things says that you love him a lot. It says that you care. Like I tell people all the time, I'm like, you're a good mom if you've actually questioned whether or not you're a good mom. Because people who are terrible moms, not that there's that many out there, but like they don't care. They're not worried about being a better mom. Like the moms who care and the moms who are trying, those are the good moms. Like that's what your kid wants to see. Like when you're spending time like working on things for your mom, like yes, he's 3 now, but depending on how long this goes on for, like as he's growing, like he's going to remember that. He's going to see the way that you care for other people, and that's teaching him lessons in how you're caring for others or how you work hard at your job to provide for your family. Like he's going to see that. And so while you may not spend 100% of your time with him, he's still learning all those things. And when you're with him, that quality time that you give him shows how much you love him and how much you support him. And as moms, we are always going to sit here and be like, well, I could have done this and I could have done that. And there's always 47 more ways that you could have done all the things, because there's always more ways to do more things. But when it comes to what's most important to you and the values that you set, you said, I care that my son feels loved and supported. So that's your goal. It's not, did I spend my whole evening only with him and not do any work? It's that the quality time that you're with him, when you can lean in and focus on him, that 10 minutes before bedtime or that 5-minute car ride, like those times you can lean in and love and support him well. He doesn't need 100% of your resources to feel loved and supported. They actually did research on this. And of course, I cannot remember the stats right now off the top of my head, but they did research around, I'm like, oh, I got to find that article now, about like the amount of time that your kids really need, like your true, like undivided focus, and that you're like really listening to them is actually not that much time. I'm like, Ashley, do you know this? I saw you unmute. I'm like, do you know what this article is?
I don't, but I was told once, I want to share that at some point you can ask them what makes them feel loved. I have a 4.5-year-old and a 2.5-year-old. Can't ask the 2.5-year-old, but the 4.5-year-old, like it took a bit to figure out. So for him to tell me, how does he feel loved? Does he feel loved when I watch TV with him? Does he feel loved when I hug him? Does he feel loved when we play? And it almost kind of shows like what their love language is. So that way also you can match them at their level. But also it sounds like, again, you're thinking of these things, which is amazing on its own. And you should like let that settle in.
Thank y'all. Thank you.
Let's pause a moment and say thank you to our sponsor, which is understood.org. They have a great new podcast that you can check out on your podcast app right here. It's called In It, Raising Kids Who Learn Differently. What I love about it is that in these episodes, you're hearing stories from other parents. You're getting other perspectives and advice that's working for other families so that you know you're not alone. Specifically for kids who are having challenges with reading or math or ADHD or dyslexia, as there is a good chance you do since you're here. This is a great show for practical tips, helpful info, and really boosting your confidence as a parent. To listen, search for the podcast here in your podcast app. It's called In It, Raising Kids Who Learn Differently, and have a listen. That's In It, Raising Kids Who Learn Differently, right here in your podcast app. Really like coming back to like, if your goal is to feel that he feels loved and supported, it's not that you did 47 things for him today. It's not that you have to meet every need or all of the needs. If the goal is, does he feel loved and supported? How do you focus in on just that? Because if you're trying to do all the different things, like there's only so much of you to go around, and you have other things that are also very important. Like, I think that's the hard part. Like when we think about priorities is like, just because my kid's super important doesn't mean that my mom who's sick isn't not important. It's just in the moment, one's going to be more important than the other. But it's not that either one of them is not important. Like sometimes we feel like by saying like, I'm going to go take care of my mom this afternoon and like my kid's like being dragged along, but not getting like the same like attention level, that they're not important. And it's not. At that moment, your mom is more important than your kid, but your kid is still learning from you in the way that you do things and the way that you care for others. So like it all adds up. So like circling back to the original question of like, what's my advice? One of them is when you think about these different things, like just like we talked about your son, like what's the most important thing that you value on each of these areas that you feel like you're juggling? And like, how do you meet that thing? So like, what's the most important thing that you want, you know, as you're caring for your ailing mom? What are the most important things to you as you look at work? What are the most important things so that you don't have to do all the things about that one topic? It's how do you get the most bang for your buck? Like the 80-20 rule of 20% of your efforts are actually making 80% of your impact. So what are the things that are going to make the most difference in those areas? And for everyone, those are going to be different. Because for one person, they think about like, if for like a really mundane thing of like cleaning your house, it's like some people will be like, well, as long as I can see all my counters, I feel like my house is clean. And other people will be like, well, as long as my like toilet doesn't have rings in it, I feel like my house is clean. Like, then just do the one or two things that like make you feel like you made a big difference. You don't have to have the house out of the magazine. What are the one or two things that are going to really feel like, okay, I made a difference here? And like, as your son gets older, you'll hear, oh, well, you know, the reading really makes more impact for him, or he really loves talking in the car, or, you know, whatever those things are, that as he can start to voice that opinion of the things that he loves the most, that you can focus your efforts in on there.
How do I remember that though? Like, that's another thing with the ADHD. It's like sitting here with you now. I'm like, okay, son, loved and nurtured, mom, supported, and like she did a good job as a mother. Like in like work, I want my clients to feel seen, and like I value their time. But then like when I'm in the moment, it's my brain just goes like, meh. I'm sorry, I'm taking up so much of your time.
No, you're okay. Nobody else has said they want to talk yet. If they do, they can put it in the chat. So.
So I forget the goals when I'm in the moment.
I mean, there's a ton of ways that like we can remember things. And my question would go back to like, what's the way that helps you remember things best? Like, I mean, you can't see my desk, obviously, but like to the left of the camera here, there's a bunch of notes on my board. And most of them are like reminding me of what I'm supposed to be doing. Like, this is my priority list for the summer. I have pictures of my kids drew for me of like, oh, right, my family is most important about all of this. Like, like on my calendar, I have like a block out every morning of like, I don't know, probably like 10 minutes to do my physical therapy exercises. I ignore that one a lot. I probably should just take that off my calendar. Like that's not working for me. So like I tried it, it didn't work. Scrap it. What's my new plan? And figuring out like what's your go-to reminder? Like is it post-it notes stuck to the door? Like also I have a ton of post-it notes stuck to my monitor here of like when I
I
walk
love
up,
Post-its.
like I literally have priorities, family, lighthouse, retreat. Like I have them written on my in my face because otherwise I forget them. So like
It
for
has
you,
to
like
be
what's the go-to? Like I will notice that. Are you if you're gonna ignore the sticky after a while, maybe you just use the sticky for 3 months and then come up with a new one.
switched to a phone alert or something.
Yeah.
Phone alerts are dangerous for me though, because they're designed to distract you like phones. So
Yeah.
okay, tattooed on the inside of my eyelid. My tattoos.
That would
Thank
be a really
you.
great invention if somebody could make that. I would appreciate it.
That's really painful also, but thank you.
Temporary
I just
tattoo.
literally can't tell you how helpful your podcast has been to
Thank
me.
you.
Just so helpful. And the fact that I don't have to pay for it also as a single mom is like invaluable. So thank you.
You are so welcome. No, that makes me really happy. There's a time where I'm like, sometimes I was like when Ash was asking me, like, what help kept you going? I was like, there were plenty of times where I was like, should I just stop this? Is this a waste of time? Is this a waste of effort? Like, so knowing that makes a really big difference. Thank you.
Yeah. Like I wait for the new episodes. It's just wonderful. So thank you.
Thank you. Like, I'm trying not to cry because then I think I'll lose my voice again. So I'm like,
I,
oh,
I on and just encourage. Is your name Sarah?
Yeah, Sarah Kate.
I just wanted to encourage you. So I am the daughter of a mom who is very ADHD, and she also was the primary caretaker of her parents and also my dad's mom as well. And I have very sweet memories as a kid being my mom's helper in taking care of my grandparents. So I just wanted to encourage you that.
Thank you. I let him. My mom can't drink water anymore, so he helps me crush the ice for her. So I'm glad to know that that might be a good memory instead of a traumatic one, because that's also something that's constantly on my mind. So thank you.
Now, my mom has told me, she's like, I was very worried that this was going to traumatize you. And I'm like, no, it's sweet because I actually have some memories. And, as a kid, it's not good or bad. It's just, this is how it is.
Normal.
Yeah. But anyway, that's all.
Thank you.
thank you, Rebecca. I'm like, oh, y'all, I'm gonna start crying. I already started crying. Yeah, I think sometimes we really beat ourselves up for stuff that like we don't need to. Like it shows how much you care about your kids that you're like considering all those things. And I think also like that's one of the hard parts about ADHD is that we do think of like all the angles. Like not everybody's like that, but a lot of people with ADHD like think of all perspectives that could possibly go into this thing in some way, shape, or form. And like it is a really great skill in many ways, but it also can send our brains into like the panic, anxious spiral of like, well, what if this happens? What if this happens? But like the fact that we can show our kids how to love people who are struggling, like Rebecca said, like as kids, we don't see all of the like the best phrase I can think of is like how the sausage was made. Like we don't see all the background things that as grown-ups, when we look at the situation, we see all the other stuff that comes with it. But like our kids are just looking at it like, ooh, like I can help my grandma by crushing the ice. Like they're not looking at like the 7 steps into it of like why she can't drink water and all this. Like they don't look at all that. They're looking at like, here's a way I get to help somebody I love. And I feel important and I have my like I have a job and I have a like purpose here. Like kids really do well with those things. Like, I mean, obviously, like as they get older, like this depends on age, but like they're not looking at it with the same lens, like the same glasses that we as the grown up are looking at. And instead, they see how to set aside a time to care for somebody, how they can help, even in like a way that a 3-year-old can help. Like, and that's a really beautiful thing that a lot of times we don't give ourselves credit for. We're worrying about the 47 ways we probably traumatized our kids today. Like, there's being a mom's hard, man. Ah.
Think about the the Enneagram a lot too. Like, I think you've mentioned that, right? You're like you're three. I think you said
I'm a one.
you're one. Okay,
Yeah.
sorry. I knew it was one of those achieving numbers, but like they all have an unanswered childhood question, right? So, and everyone has an Enneagram number. So, in some way, it's like, well, I'm gonna mess them up, and like, like it's a little fatalistic, but also like, there's no getting around it. He's going to have an Enneagram number. So,
Yeah.
Anyway,
I mean, we're raising people, like humans, that are developing, and there's no way to protect them from everything. So how can we introduce them to like the harder parts of life with a loving mindset? Like, I think this is a beautiful way to introduce him to like how to care for people who are struggling. And granted, like that's just my opinion, but it's like there's going to be plenty of times that he sees people struggling in life. And how beautiful is it that like these are his earliest memories of caring for somebody who's struggling, is how he's helping.
he said at preschool, one of his teachers told me when I picked him up, they were doing make believe, like pretend play in a kitchen, and he was stirring something. I'm probably gonna cry again. He was stirring something, and the teacher said, "What are you making?" And he said, "I'm making soup for Granny." Like,
oh, so sweet.
this sweet kid. Oh God, sorry. Ooh, I'm sorry. I was
so like
sorry.
I like circling back. I'm like, when I told you, does he feel loved and supported? And you're like, I think so. I'm like, Sarah Kate, he clearly feels loved and supported because he tells other people the same thing. Like he does it for other people. He illustrates that. Like you're doing a great job. There's always more things we can tell ourselves we should be doing.
I'm sure I can take this note for myself too, but if everyone has to have an Enneagram number, that doesn't mean you're the one who causes his. It could be something at school. It could be something. He could have been born with it. Let's go with too, right? Depending on how woo you want to get, but you can be help of the solution. So don't, and again, very into the Enneagram. Yeah, our kids will have grievances with us at some point, but also the fact that we're sitting here having this conversation now with a 3-year-old, 4.5-year-old, 6-year-old, like when the time comes that they're saying, I'm frustrated about this, we'll be ready to listen. So you might not be like the one causing it. So that's something you can like release too.
Let go of the guilt. Yeah.
Yeah. We're working on it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And just like our kids are growing, like we as moms are growing. I wish there was like an instruction manual, but there's not. So like we're learning how to be parents at the same time that they're learning how to be people. And I have to remind myself of that a lot of like, I wasn't meant to know exactly what to do, or else I feel like we would have gotten the instruction manual with the kid. Like this is part of our growth as people, is learning how to do this well for the kids that we have been given to care for. And he's shaping you just as much as you're shaping him.
There's too many instruction manuals for mothers.
Well, there's a lot of people yelling instructions and having commentaries. I don't know they really made an instruction manual. I'm like, But yeah, there's a lot of people that like to tell you what to do.
Yes. Probably my biggest struggle when I became a mother was, I mean, besides the lack of sleep, but I love Excel spreadsheets and like color coding them and making them very nice. Like I had an Excel spreadsheet before he was born with like, I have this item in this size. How many of these have I like inventoried and all this, and then everything was just so perfectly organized. And then I'm like, I will do this right. And there's no right. There's no right. So anyway, yeah.
I think
Thank
that's
you
one of
again.
the hardest parts about being a parent is like all the coping mechanisms we had for ourselves ahead of time, like before we had kids, worked then. But then all of a sudden you're given this creature who does not care about spreadsheets. And you have to like figure out a whole new way to do things. Cause like I get you, I'm a spreadsheet girl. Like I love a good table. It's color coded, makes me happy. But like that's not how kids roll. They take your spreadsheet and throw in the trash. So
babies don't read baby books.
They don't. Or any books. Or listen or speak. It's like it's just a whole like it's so much of a growth experience for us too, because all those things that we had in place before are not what we need now. Like some of them help us, but there's just so much flexibility needed and so much growth for us, and like having that grace for ourselves to say it's okay that we don't know what we're doing and we're going to figure it out. It's a ride.
It's time to be true to you. You're invited, Mama, to this year's 3rd annual Successful as a Mother weekend retreat. It is time to relax, unwind, rest, and take care of a very important person in the family, which is you. This year's retreat is on October 11th through 13th, 2024, and you're invited. This is an all-inclusive retreat. It covers your meals, your hotel, all of our activities. All you have to do is show up, and I take it from there. We are staying in the historic boutique hotel, the Sam Houston, in downtown Houston, where we will learn about our ADHD, tune in to who you are and what you need so that you can trust your gut. All while eating delicious food you didn't cook, you didn't clean up, hanging out with awesome other moms who are just like you in their ADHD journey, trying to make things work, fill out the permission slips, do all the things, but not this weekend. This weekend you get to relax. I will take care of everything, and you get to focus on you. Head over to my website, patriciasung.com/retreat, and grab your ticket. This is a small group, and we already have 5 moms from last year coming. So I don't have a ton of spots left. Do not wait. Do not procrastinate. When you hear this and you say this is for me, go grab your ticket. You can use a payment plan. I don't charge extra for that. Go sign up, get your ticket, and take a weekend to take care of you while I do all the work. So head over to patriciasung.com/retreat and get your ticket for the 3rd annual ADHD Moms Amazing Getaway Weekend and relax. patriciasung.com/retreat.
What would be, Patricia, your biggest mission with this podcast? Did you maybe just say it?
It's to help as many moms as possible with ADHD. Like, how do I help millions of moms with ADHD?
Help them what?
I think to feel confident and capable, and that like you can do this. Is it going to be pretty most of the time? Probably not. But that it is possible to be successful when you have ADHD. It is possible to feel like you're doing a decent job. Like, no, not every day are we going to feel like we're doing a great job. Motherhood's hard. But to know like it's doable, we can figure it out, and we can go through our phase of parenthood feeling like we did what we set out to do. Our kids feel loved, our kids feel supported. And like the only way through is not burnout and overwhelm, is that we can take these little steps forward to get to the place where we feel like, okay, I think this is doable. I think I can keep my head above water for a little bit. And like every time life dumps more water on, like how do I figure out how to deal with that? Because we can't control life. We aren't raising robots. Like things are going to be hard. But how can we set ourselves up to be able to handle that? And I think that all comes back to probably like 95% of the time, it comes back to us trusting ourselves and relearning how to listen to ourselves. Because I think a lot of people with ADHD have learned to stop trusting their gut, stop trusting the way that we hear the messages from ourselves, whether that like some people are more like somatic and they feel more like in their gut or whatever. Some people hear things or think things in their mind. Some people see more visually. Like everybody gets their messages different from their body. Like going back to trusting yourself and learning, like relearning that language that you have ignored for so many years, and connecting back into who you are and being able to listen to yourself, and therefore feeling more confident in what you're doing. Yeah. I think like a lot of it got buried during early motherhood, or like whatever traumas you have endured from birth till now. Like all of that has pulled a lot of us with ADHD away from remembering who we are and how we can trust ourselves. And when we can feel confident in that, we can handle a lot more other things, because the way that we approach, like, for example, like what Sarah Kay was saying, it's like the way that when we're carrying all this stuff, you know, ailing parents, job struggles, like when you start naming all the things that we're dealing with, like it's all going to be there no matter what. So how do we have the centeredness and the groundedness to be able to deal with all of those things and trust that we're doing our best. Like the fact that moms question, even if they're doing a good job, like you're doing a good job just by questioning it. And I know you're constantly looking for ways to like do it better, which is wonderful. And I want you to know, like, whatever you're doing right now is also good. Like, when you make the best decision you can with the information you have, you're doing your best. And we don't have to be this like permanent self-improvement project. We can also just be ourselves and be happy with that. And like, how do we find that contentment with that? Like the balance of I want to do better and I am okay how I am is a hard one. But I think we can get there. Yeah, especially for the high achievers, like being okay. All the perfectionists and my fellow Enneagram ones and all the gifted and talented kids who feel like are now existentially having crises, like finding that balance of, yes, I want to do better. And I'm also good just as I am. Pulling those two back into alignment. That's my hope. That's my plan. Hopefully we'll get there sooner than later. So,
well, you already hit 1 million. So just keep on keeping on.
I don't have any plans to stop anytime soon. Someone asked me the other day, they're like, how long are you gonna do this? And I was like, oh no, like till God tells me to stop. I don't know. Like I never thought I got this far, to be honest. Like the fact that I have ADHD and did something for 5 years straight, I'm like, wow, that's pretty good. So yeah, I love what I do. So keep on tracking.
Hey, I'm going to jump in and ask a question. Since you
Yes,
said
ma'am.
how long you're going to do this, how do you feel like your journey has evolved in the last 5 years? Because I imagine it doesn't look like exactly how it started for you. And how has it changed like over the last 5 years?
Oh man. Oh, thank you, Heather. I'll see you later. I think back to the beginning, like I really was like, oh my gosh, I really didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know how to podcast. It really was like an outlet for trying to find connection again after having my son. Cause I think I started it when he was about a year and a half. And I just felt so disconnected from people who understood me. And so it was a lot of just trying to find my people was part of like it was equally as selfish as it was like helping other people. And when it was still in this like hobby phase of like I don't really know what I'm doing and I'm just trying to connect the dots together and help as many people as I can and also like find people that get me. It was I'm like, how would I categorize that phase? It felt like mostly like I didn't know what I was doing at all. And it was just like throwing spaghetti out there and like hoping something sticks the whole time. It was like probably like a year and a half. And then when I realized like I wanted to teach more and I started doing the courses and like leaning on my educator background, it was like that was just so fun. And it lit me up so much to be able to do this thing that I loved. And now in a way that was nowhere near what I thought it was going to be. Like, I honestly thought that when my kids were bigger, I would just go back. I was going to go back and get my master's and be like a principal at a school. And to end up in this place where I'm like, I was not planning on starting another business. Like I already have a real estate company. I was like, this was not at all in the cards for like, this is not in the 5-year plan by any means. And at that point being like, okay, like I started putting the courses out there, but it still felt like very safe because it was very much like what I knew and what I felt comfortable doing. So it was like trying something new, but like now that I look back, it was like, it was new for me because I didn't know what I was doing, but it wasn't as, I guess, like risky because I was still doing the thing I was really good at, just in a different way. And then when I realized like I really wanted to do coaching, that's when it felt like, oh wow, I'm really like, whoa, this is not like, am I serious? Am I really going to do this? Am I going to step out and do this job that like feels very what's the word I'm looking for? Like a lot of times coaching just feels like very unofficial. Like when you're an educator and you have your certification and your degrees, like it feels very like I am very official here with my job. And coaching, it's like any old schmo can decide they're going to be a coach. Like you hope that they got some training, but like literally they don't have to. They can just show up and be like, I'm a coach. Okay. Like there's no rules about deciding you're a coach. And so to go from this very like education's a very like hierarchical, is that a word? Hierarchical? Like very much like a lot of bureaucracy, a lot of politics, a lot of like you can only advance if you have these, degrees and these certifications. Like it's very official and very I don't know, like limiting is the right word, but it's like there's a lot of gatekeeping going on. And then to like jump into this field, yeah, online business, it feels like the wild, wild west. Like there's no rules. Anybody can do whatever they want. Like you really have to do your research when you're trying to find somebody to help you because any old schmo can say they're an expert. And like how do you like, you got to research and back them up. And so it felt like I went from the beginning of like, this is a hobby, I have no idea what I'm doing. Then it was like, here I'm doing something that felt risky to me, but was actually pretty safe. Then in this phase of like, oh my gosh, like, am I really just going to jump out here and like in this foray of like unknownness and be able to like stand on my own 2 feet from I'm like, what's the word I'm looking for? Like, there's not like, again, like education is like, you have all these like things, like there's resources to find and lean on. Whereas in doing an online business, like there's no like system and there's no like structure, like on you have to do things this way. Like that's what it is. In education, it's very much like, you want to do this, do these 3 steps, follow the instructions. And it was very clear as to how to move forward. When you have your own business, especially one online, it's like, you can do whatever you want. Like, how are you going to get there? And the confidence and the like centeredness and groundedness that I have to be able to do this well is like 5 years ago, Patricia had no idea what would have been required here and how much I have to stay focused on the things that are really important. Because if you spend too much time on Instagram, you see all the people doing all the things and you'll see, well, this is the person who has 10 New York Times bestsellers, and this person has a YouTube channel with 70 million views, and this person has, their 100K months and like 10x your visibility for blah, 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 blah. Like, there's always going to be all these people out here telling you, like, you have to do my formula to get somewhere. And that's a lie. 1, 2, a lot of their instructions are not meant for people who are neurodivergent. And 3, like, I'm the one who decides what success looks like. Because for me, like, having a YouTube channel with whatever blah, 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 that doesn't matter to me. Like, it does not really sound like a ton of fun. Like, I don't want to have to figure out how YouTube works. I don't want to have to figure out, like, looking like halfway put together. Like, that's why I like a podcast and be there in my PJs talking to myself in my closet. I don't have to look cute. I mean, I'm not even wearing makeup today, but actually I don't wear much makeup at all. To me, it's like, starts looking more about like what I'm presenting instead of the information. It's like, is that my like value and like what success looks like? And it's not. But to be able to say that and like hold true to myself has been like a huge hurdle to get to, in being able to say, like, I'm okay with not having all the razzle dazzle things that all these other people have, and staying true to like what really matters for me. So I think I really appreciate the last like year or two and how much like I've centered myself and like staying true to who I am, which is really hard. I feel like I get off track like every 5 seconds, but that's made a really big difference. And it's, especially when you have ADHD, you're like, ooh, shiny thing. Ooh, shiny thing. Like, to keep coming back and being like, no, what's my mission here? What's my purpose? Who am I trying to help? How am I trying to help them? It's a constant battle to stay focused in on what really matters, and stay true to like who I am and what matters to me. So, thank you, Sarah Kate. I'm so glad you came. Have fun at work, I hope, or at least help somebody a lot. I don't know what you do, but you said session with a person. I'm assuming you're helping them with something. So
I'm the only private practice board certified music therapist in Central Arkansas. So yeah, I work with senior adults, and yeah, it's awesome. So thank you. I will I would say see you, but I'll hear you on your next episode. Bye.
I am so glad y'all are here. See your all faces just makes me really happy. All right, y'all, I'm gonna do one more question and then we'll wrap up. Like, I can hear my voice is starting to peter out. So, okay. Do y'all have any more questions for me?
All I was going to say is I Googled, mom coach for ADHD entrepreneur, and you were the first person that popped up, and that was fantastic. I was like, this is exactly what I'm looking for. So pretty great.
Thank you. I'm like, all that work on my SEO worked.
Yeah, it worked great. Good job.
It's like when you start your own business, you're like, when I started this, I had no idea I was gonna have to learn so many things. Like, if you would even ask me what SEO was 5 years ago, I'd have been like, SEO, so what is that? I don't know. So, man.
I don't know. Can you hear me now?
Yay, I can hear you.
Yay, audio worked. So I don't know so much as a question as a statement. Like, I can't believe Well, I can't believe because one, you're wonderful. But also like 1 million is a big deal. So my husband produced this podcast and I told him like you got to 1 million and he was like, "What? That's a big like that is a big huge deal." So I think from our family to yours, like we're just so proud of you.
Thank you.
And I'm so glad the world agrees how wonderful you are and they listen. And then also like what was not gonna cry. Like what an amazing impact you've made on so many people and just speaking for myself, like I've known I've been around for a couple years, but I just adore you and I'm so glad I found a friend on the internet and yeah, you've just made my life so much better. So I just
you.
care about you so much and I want to give you all your flowers. And thank you. Like you just make woo, all the like self-esteem stuff and all the like things like, oh, my brain's not working and this and that. Like you make it in a way that I don't feel so negative about myself. And just come a long way and it's
You have.
big part because of you and I just want to say thank you. And here's the 2 million.
Thank you. I'll say Johnny's one of my my ride or dies. She's been around here since the beginning. Thank you. No, I love you. I'm like, can't wait to hug you at the retreat in a couple months. Yeah, it's no, thank you for telling me that because like that's another thing that's really weird in the podcast world is like people don't say how many downloads they have and it's like this big mystery. And so like and like I think that's pretty good. But like most people won't say what they have. So it's kind of like, it's almost like money. Like people don't talk about their money enough and you're like I don't know. It's like
Well, I can tell you he produces about 47. So he has a lot. And over the years, he's had more. Most of them get, he said, anywhere between 100 to like 250 a month. And usually the podcasts don't last more than a couple years. Like people just kind of do the work in the beginning and then they kind of fall out or whatever. But he was like, 1 million is a big deal. That's like you won the lotto. Like most people, I think most people don't, he said that to me. He's like, most people don't realize like how much people and like like how much audio that is to listen to and how much that is. He's like, most people never get that. He's like, you're lucky to get 500,000. He's like, 1 million is a big deal. So I just
like, oh yeah.
And he's been doing this for 10
People
years.
on the
So I
podcast
mean,
can't see me. I'm doing a little dancing, a little jig.
and he's been doing this for 10 years. And it's just, he's just like, that's
Oh,
a
wow.
big deal. That's like 1 million is no joke. So I just hope you know that.
Thank
How
you.
amazing you are.
No, that means a lot. Because I'm always like, I mean, I'm assuming not a lot of people get to 1 million because not many people say it. So I'm assuming they're not there. But it's just when I think back to like Patricia from 5 years ago, who was like, I don't know. I'm proud. No, this is a terrible idea. Like to just and like I think back of like I have screenshots of like the beginning when I'd have like 7 downloads today. And you're like, oh man. Like I always had to like picture myself seeing like 7 ladies listening to it and being like, I'm very happy that I helped these 7 people. Because it feels like when you just think of 7, it doesn't feel like a lot. But when I picture 7 people, I'm like, oh, I'm helping 7 people. And there's a lot of times like I don't even know how I kept going. There's many times where I was just like, this is terrible. I should just give up, throw in the towel. But yeah, it's crazy. I'm still like, I don't know. I don't even know how I got here sometimes. I'm like, it's a lot of stubbornness, maybe. I don't know. So, all right, y'all. Thank you so much for coming today. It was so good to see you. Made me really happy that y'all were here to hang out with me. I appreciate it. And it's so good to like put faces to the people. Like I can now picture you like when I'm in my closet sitting on the floor, I can be like, oh look, these people were listening. It really gives me a lot of life to know that like this is it's real and it's tangible and it just makes me really happy. So thank you all for coming. Thank you for being here. Thank you for downloading. Love you guys. I'm gonna go make some more tea and just revel in my happy bubble today. Just really appreciative. So, okay, I made it through with only kind of crying like 3 times. That's pretty good. So, love y'all. Thank you for being here. And I hopefully will see you very soon. Bye.
For more resources, classes, and community, head over to my website, motherhoodinadhd.com.